Hi everyone, my name is Guanchi Zhang. I'm an assistant professor at the Vermont Law and Graduate School. Probably you can guess from the name of my school, I'm not an economist, I'm a legal scholar, but I also wear many other hats. I'm also study political economy. I study the cities, right? So the urban law, law and the city, law, city, political economy, those are my three keywords. So I was just giving my workshop, which is about the housing production in rising property market. So the workshop began with a very simple question. So in both United States and in China until very recently, we see the property price is rising. The housing market is booming. However, in China, tons of housings are provided. Whereas in the United States, we see the kind of housing constructions stay at a very low level, not just for the last 20 years, for the last 50 years. So this workshop is really want to look into this question. So as I said, I'm not an economist, I'm a qualitative social scientist, meaning that my approach will be very different. So my approach is to not look at, so whether there is strong structural forces that kind of motivating the housing market. I think there are many of them, but I think my task is really to open up the black box of urban political economy. Let's say what is inside, what is really the land governance model in the US and China, and how does that lead to the divergent outcomes in property market. Okay, so let's talk about the US at first. Right? So as I explained in the workshop, but I will probably be short here, that is right now the US really have this autocracy in urban governance. So it is a kind of a convergence between a liberal tradition and a conservative tradition, meaning that in the process of land development, there are multiple steps, and each step can be a choking point to stop the entire process, which provide a lot of chances for any actor, especially those very active community defenders, to stop the process of land development. So that kind of is the background of why the US housing provisions is really low. And then in the last 20 years, we see some attempt to solve the issue that is in the form of community benefits agreement. So I will not go to detail into that. So basically that is a mutual agreement between the community and the developer. The community is going to provide certain benefits. In return, the developer is going to provide certain benefits, and in return, the community will not oppose those projects. Those innovations has been initially very useful for several large projects to be done in American cities. And however, over time, we see there's multiple problems. Those contracts are not legally enforceable. And then we see the oversight is also lacking because of the plural interest in the community, that different people want different things, and those representatives, they also lack true representation. Sometimes those actors from civil society just disappear after several years. Basically, there's no way to really enforce those contracts, which supposedly to bring goods both to the community and the developer. So this problem of lack of trust persists in U.S. land development, and still we are still in this the endless process of autocracy that leads to the insufficient housing production, which leads to all the housing affordability discussion in the U.S. Whereas in China, we see a very different institutional setup. Right? So China traditionally has this very strong state-led developmentalism in the provision of housing and the land development, which really contributed to a lot of those fast growth, but also a lot of grievances, discontent in urban China. So in the last 10-20 years, the Chinese local government also tried to do something. Instead of them going outside and to expropriate land from the rural villagers, they also like the developer and those rural residents to sign agreement with each other. So the idea is very similar, right? So this agreement will reduce the uncertainty both for the village collective, but also for the developer. And then this is also a way for Chinese government to outsource some of those heavy responsibilities and burdens like two different societal actors. And it turns out in the Chinese case, that contract works pretty well. Why is that? So I argue there's two things. So first, we actually in the Chinese case, we don't have those community organization to represent a community. We have a geographically defined and membershiply based community. That is, those rural villagers are actually already organized through rural collectives. So they actually have a decision-making authorities in the first place. And on top of that, many of those villages have a strong lineage group, which create a social capital and make it possible to first overcome the collective action problem, and second, to basically represent the collective's interest in one unified voice against the developer. So that makes them a very ideal counterparty in the contract in terms of how they can implement the terms and the conditions in the contract. So that is why we see after some cities began to implement these policy innovations, there are less violence and less coercion involved in the process, and then this housing production, the general process began to feel just more smooth, right? So there's housing can be more easily produced. So yes, this provides a slice of the answer to the big question I raised at the very beginning. But I think most importantly, I think it's methodologically, it's require us to really open up the black box of urban political economy and look into that, look into these interactions between different actors and how institution and institutional innovations mediate those interactions. And then I think one thing that was qualitative scientists can do is to look into those processes and try to distill those concepts, this mechanism, those dynamics, and then let our quantitative colleagues to see how generalizable it is, right? So I think that is my purpose here. That is to provide a window to look at a very different world and potentially inspire some of the economists about the future work they can do and their future collaboration with the other social scientists that are across the air.